What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to have a bit of a chat about VO2 Max. And of course you've heard all about VO2 Max, like people throw around their VO2 Max numbers, and that's because ultimately, it's kind of the gold standard of how we judge fitness, but also it may affect how long you live. So if you like running, if you like living, let's get into it. All right, my friends, thanks for sitting through that intro. Again, that intro is just to encourage you to like this video and subscribe if you're not already. I really appreciate your support. But enough of that. Today we're talking about VO2 Max. And of course, I came across an article, this time in Cycling Weekly. And the article is titled, "Study Shows Fitness Metric May Influence Longevity. But does VO2 Max tell us the whole story?" Well, I think with a title like that and a setup like that, obviously VO2 Max is not telling us the whole story. So very basically, VO2 Max is a measurement of how efficient your body is at transporting oxygen during intense exercise. And it's more than just a measure of athletic performance. And I guess by that I'm saying that across the board, like as a population, you'll probably have better athletic performance if your VO2 max is higher, but just because someone's VO2 max is higher doesn't necessarily mean they're going to have a better athletic performance than you. In case you're wondering, when you see that 2-digit metric for your VO2 max, at least I hope yours is 2 digits. I mean, if it's 3 digits, that's really good, but if it's 1 digit, you should probably do a bit more work. Anyway, that 2-digit number represents the milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of body weight per minute. Got that? So Garmin measures my VO2 max at 54. That means my body is transporting 54 milliliters of oxygen per kilogram of my body weight per minute. And I hope you don't need any more explanation than that, because I don't have it. But VO2 max is not just about running faster. For us, running faster. For this article, cycling faster. But people with a higher VO2 max have a lower risk of cardiovascular disease, lower risk of hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and even premature death. And the article says that, in short, boosting your VO2 max is just a great way of extending your life. Now, when you have a higher VO2 max, it means that you are able to breathe in more oxygen, get that oxygen to your blood, and from your blood, that oxygen goes to your muscles, and from your muscles, it gets expended as energy when you are running, doing any kind of athletic performance. Now, it's important to know that your VO2 max is largely a genetic trait. So if your mum and dad had a high VO2 max, it's likely that you also have a high VO2 max. And while that may be disappointing to some of you, you should know that VO2 max is also trainable. Maybe not to the extent that it is genetic, but you can train to get higher. And I think it's one of those things, really like running itself, where we are aiming just to get better, right? We need to get better within ourselves. When we're running, yes, we go to races and we compete against other people, but no one is really us. So when we go to a race, we're competing against ourselves. We're trying to be the best we can be on race day. And the same is true with VO2 max. We just want to edge that number just a little higher or maintain that number. Because as we get older, of course, things get more difficult. And with VO2 max, it's no different. It's difficult to boost your VO2 max as you get older, because as you get older, it naturally drops. Now, of course, I'm going to put a link to that article that I mentioned in the show notes below. But on your screen right now, we're just going to show some VO2 max levels and what is considered poor, fair, good, and excellent for different age groups. So for me, I fall into the men 40 to 49 category. And this is going to sound like a flex, but excellent for me is more than 45. And I've already said that Garmin measures mine at 54. But for me, it's not really a flex because I have just seen that number come down over the years. Now, it should also be known, well, actually, I don't know, so I can't really explain it. But on a regular basis, I wear 3 watches when I run. I'll wear my Apple Watch, I'll wear a Chorus, and I'll wear a Garmin. Chorus measures my VO2 max the lowest at 50. Now, funnily enough, Chorus also gives me the fastest race time predictors out of all 3. But Chorus measures my VO2 max at 50, Garmin measures it at 54, and Apple Health measures it at 58. So you've got to take that number with a pinch of salt. But if I am going to be taking salt with my VO2 max numbers, maybe I should start flexing with my Apple Watch number, because I do like 58 more than 54. Now, of course, the critical thinkers of you out there are wondering, Matt, is VO2 max really a predictor of a longer life? Well, this is where things get a bit tricky, because if you do have a higher VO2 max, it probably means that you're doing some kind of training in order to get your VO2 max to a point where it's considered high. And if you are doing that training, it means that you have a healthy mindset. You are trying to better yourself through exercise, and people that exercise generally, I would think, I've actually got no data to back this up, but I think people that exercise are more mindful about what they eat. Of course, maybe not at an individual level, but as a population, it seems like that would make sense, right? Also, people that work out, which is how they're getting that high VO2 max, they probably have a good, or at least better than average body composition. So if you eat well, you have a healthy body composition, and you exercise on a regular basis, these are all factors that could lead to having a longer life. So it may not be that VO2 max exactly that is making you live longer, just the healthy lifestyle that you're leading, which also benefits you with a higher VO2 max. Now, there was a study that investigated a midlife cardiorespiratory fitness and long-term mortality rates. Now, this study is a bit old. It was published in the Journal of American College of Cardiology all the way back in 2018. I mean, but 2018, I suppose, wasn't that long long ago. We weren't Neanderthals back then. People still knew what they were doing. But that study showed that with each individual unit increase in VO2 max, the participants lived 45 days longer. And in the study, those with the highest fitness levels lived almost 5 years longer than those with the lowest. Now, because that was a longitudinal study, it does provide pretty strong evidence that VO2 max is more than just a measure of athletic ability, it is a predictor of lifespan. So I already mentioned that VO2 max declines with age, and typically it declines by about 1% per year after you turn 30. And like many of you over 30, I don't like the sound of that at all. Now, this is largely due to the physiological changes that occur with age. So when we get older, we have a lower cardiac output. That is, our hearts just pump less blood. We lose muscle mass and we have lower pulmonary function. However, what's really tricky with aging is that it can be hard to parse out the differences between just getting older and not doing anything. So your VO2 max is actually a case of use it or lose it, right? Like most things, I think, at least physical things. So what this means is that you can slow the decline. You can't stop it, but you can slow the decline by continuing to work out as the years go by. So perhaps you're wondering, what is more important? Do I have to go out for a long time, or do I have to go out for a really hard effort? Should I be concentrating on duration or intensity? Now, there was a meta-analysis that is even older. It was done in 2007, and that meta-analysis looked at 41 trials with about 2,100 participants, and the study was looking at people over 60 and the effects of their exercise on their VO2 max. Now, during the study, the participants led to a net gain of an average of 16.3% in their VO2 max, which was pretty good for all involved. And the biggest gains were seen by the participants that exercised for more than 20 weeks and who trained at an intensity of between 60 and 70% of their VO2 max. Now, I've got to tell you that I haven't actually looked at that study, so I don't know who they use, but obviously if they are using older sedentary adults, then the improvement of VO2 max is going to be huge. Like you and I, we run a couple times a week, our gains are not going to be as staggering. It's just like when a runner starts running for the first time, they see these huge gains, they're getting faster week over week, but for you and I, we only see incremental gains, if even that. So I don't know if these participants in this study were well trained or they were just reaping the benefits of being new. But the good news is that whether you are a new runner or an experienced runner, you can still improve or at least stop the decline, not stop, slow. You can slow the decline of your VO2 max. Now, there are two ways you can boost your VO2 max. The first one is by doing low intensity for a long time. The second is by doing high intensity for a short time. And because as we get older, our recovery time increases, the article suggests that older adults maybe focus more on those high intensity, shorter efforts in order to get more bang for your buck. And if you are working out for less time, that means you have more time to recover. Of course, if you can do a little bit of both, probably going to get the best of both worlds. Now, I know a lot of you are probably not wondering this, but we're going to talk about it anyway, and that is, can your VO2 max be too high? And I've got to say, at this stage of my life, I don't think I'm in any danger of training too much where my VO2 max is going to get too high. Like, I like the balance that I have. But it is true that regular cardio activity is linked to a longer life, right? We already discussed that. But it's also been shown that athletes that work out for a very long time or a very high intensity have higher incidence of heart problems, including atrial fibrillation. Some experts also have expressed concern over the oxidative stress that is shown in athletes that do prolonged high intensity work. And of course, while moderate exercise is anti-inflammatory, excessive endurance training can reduce your immune function and increase inflammation. And if you have run a marathon, you have probably experienced this. Unfortunately, it's very common to get sick after a marathon. And that's because you've been training, it all culminates with your race, and then your immune function is lower and you get sick. Now, there was a 2015 study that expressed exercise in a U-shaped curve. What it found was you had high mortality rates with no exercise, and then when you came down the U to the bottom and you had the moderate exercises, they had the lowest mortality rate. And then for those of you, or us, that maybe exercise a little more or run a little more than moderate, the mortality rate goes up. So broadly speaking, I guess the answer is yes. Not exactly VO2 max that can lower your mortality rate, because again, as a population, people with a higher VO2 max are going to live longer, but there is a limit. And if you are wondering where that limit is, I'll tell you. Broadly speaking, between 75 and 150 minutes a week is considered optimal. If you regularly exceed 10 hours a week of above moderate intensity training, sorry, but that puts you in the zone of potentially undoing your lifespan gains. So now it's your turn. I want to hear from you. Are you at any danger of exceeding the moderate levels whereby you are going to potentially lower your life expectancy because you're working out too much? If not, do you know anyone that is? Drop a comment and let me know. Oh, and by the way, if you have made it to this point in the video, I want you to put a tombstone in the comments, the tombstone emoji, not an actual tombstone, but I want you to drop that in the comments just to let me know that you've made it to this point in the video. And of course, the tombstone is because we're all heading in that direction, and we can either take a slower journey or speed it up by either doing nothing or by doing too much. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been a video on VO2 max and how it could extend your life. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.